somebody to help you, right? You can't always do it yourself, and it's not the best idea for you to always do it yourself if you're trying to grow your business.
Can you have employees when you have a cottage food license?
Yeah, one.
Okay.
I knew there was something about employee restriction with the cottage industry.
Okay, so we got this down, okay?
Yes.
Now,
Thank you.
one of the problems that you have with this, and again, trying to think ahead, is that if you calculate this, what's going to happen a month later?
The prices are going to
The prices are going to change. They might go up, they might go down, and you have to go through the entire process again. So I'm going to suggest a couple websites for you to go to.
And 1 second, in your figures right here,
Yes.
does this 60% here at the bottom, does it include like cover for your office, your advertisement, your...
No. The 40% that's left has to pay for that. Okay, so for costing tools, your ideal situation is to go out and spend a few bucks and get a program that's linked. So you have all your ingredients, and then you link your recipes to it. So you do this jam, maybe later you do something else, and you do something else. And every time that you update your master, it's called an inventory list. Every time you update that inventory list, it goes through all your recipes and calculates a new cost, and will calculate a new selling price for you. Okay?
What is it called?
I'm not going to tell you. All right, there's two of them.
That's interesting.
There's two of them. For about $300, and this is probably the best deal on the market right now, there's a program called Easy Chef. And you can go to their website. They have a tutorial on there. They show you how it works. It's really designed for restaurants, but it has a number of advantages over trying to do it manually. For a little bit less money, for about $120, you can go to restaurantowner.com, and they have a program. It's called Recipe Mapping. I actually write an article for them every month. They have a number of things. I mean, everything from employee handbooks to job descriptions. So if you're it's really designed for the restaurant industry. But they have an Excel-based program that you can download. The difference between these two is that this one has to be manually updated. This one will link to your vendors in certain cases. Most of you don't really need that. Okay, so go on there. You pay once. It's a 1-year subscription. You pay something a month. I think it's $20. There's no contract. You can download anything off the website you want and then just cancel your membership. So this is the cheapest way to do it.
So if you download it, figure it all out, and then cancel your membership, you still have the...
Everything you download, you own.
Okay.
All right. All right.
You would have to manually, then you would have to figure it out again.
You don't figure it out again. They work the same way. That's the advantage to using these programs. You put strawberries in, and it goes into 5 different recipes. You just change the cost of strawberries, which you have to do yourself, and it goes into 5 new, and changes the entire thing and calculates a new selling
But
price.
that's only if you are still paying the fee.
No.
No.
This is a one-time purchase. This is a one-time fee,
Okay.
and you can download, and you didn't hear it from me, but 2 of you could share it. Yeah, well, ouch. I guess when the county's done with you, you got to get every bargain you can, right?
Work together.
Okay, so these are two programs I would suggest. And again, as you add more stuff to your product line, you change your recipes, whatnot. The information is in here. All you got to do is keep it current. Okay.
And is it rest?
It's restaurant owner.
It's a full word.
Yeah, it's restaurantowner.com. Restaurantowner.com. And Easy Chef is just Easy Chef. These are the 2 best deals I've seen. There's other ones out there, they're more expensive and they're harder to figure out. There is a learning curve to them, but again, most of you have pretty straightforward stuff. All right?
So, quick question.
Sure.
So
what should be your take home?
Well, again, for the first couple years, I wouldn't expect much of a take-home. You're probably not even going to be able to pay yourself the minimum wage. But it's like any other business. The more successful you become, the bigger your take-home becomes.
What about in terms of, I was thinking more like, will I be able to even out with the cost of ingredient labels, packaging and this and that,
Even out, mean, can we be able to sell it for as much as you have into it?
Yeah.
I think we just covered that.
If you got a client,
In your case, maybe not.
you're gonna be able to cover it. If you're not gonna sell the clean, I don't know how you're gonna do it.
You might want to.
Because 38 is expensive for a jar of
I
jam.
know, I love the fact that you're having a lot of fun with this, it's good. But seriously,
Well, seriously.
I'm trying to understand, will this give me the opportunity to see, for example, I spent $7, okay, on producing this jar of marmalade. And so if I sell it, for example, at 10, I will be able to make up for the cost of the ingredient, not my time or anything else. But at least I will make.
Well, the problem with doing that, the problem with going in and just trying to cover your costs, is that as your product gains traction in the marketplace, you start to lose money instead of make money, so you have to do what?
Raise the price.
You have to raise the price. And as soon as you start raising the price, you lose market share. So if you go into the marketplace at a reasonable price, or what you have to have to make money, and it doesn't sell, then you're doing it wrong. Go do something else. If you got to sell your jam for $38, it's not going to work. I mean, we got that figured out. Marmalade, damn it! Oh well, that's a whole different story.
Okay, but don't go report to the Santa Cruz County Health Department, but last Christmas I sold 60 of them,
For how much?
$10 a jar.
And it took you
Good.
2 days to make them, so that's 30 days of making them.
No, I make,
Well, let's move on. Let's move on because we've covered this, and we could spend a lot of time here. So remember, you got to build labor into this. It's not profit if you haven't paid labor, and you always got to add that 20%. Okay? Let's talk about packaging. And maybe where you start with packaging and where you're going to go. There's a product line out on the market, and I don't have any further information on this, but we introduced a line of pouch packed tomatoes for a producer in the valley a couple years ago. Great product. And they used, and I don't even know if I'm spelling this right, but we used what's called Kraft packaging. And Kraft boxes are uniform size with uniform dividers, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. So when you start talking about packaging your product and then putting it in a master case, research generic stuff that's out there and make your stuff fit into it, because packaging costs are tremendous. You don't go out and buy 500 logo cases. Right, Massimo? You got to buy a lot of them, don't you? And it gets more and more expensive as you go. So generic packaging, and then how can we customize those cases at kind of a low dollar approach?
Labels.
Yeah, gummed labels.
Stamp them all.
What's that?
Rubber stamp them all. They're really cheap.
On the boxes?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit later about creating brand image. So sometimes we want to put a little money into a little bit of glitz, So you could do a rubber stamp, certainly. You could write on it by hand, which would be sort of artisan, wouldn't it? Unless you had handwriting like mine. But craft boxes and generic, a whole generic approach there, and gummed labels. And you can go to any office supply place and get great gummed labels. You can take them a digital copy of your logo or whatever it is. And do they have to have the ingredients list on the master case? Is it just the units inside?
The units, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, okay. So it's really a marketing tool. You don't have to cover any of the other stuff that's on there.
I'm kind of don't really get what you're saying because, for example, I get my my jars. My mustard I put in jars, so I get a case, and the case.
The case of jars.
So is this the case that holds the jar? That
Could very well be. Could very well be. Yeah,
Okay.
could very well be. Maybe if you get your containers in a case, then reuse that case and put your logo on it. But generally, it has somebody else's information on it.
But I would put my logo why? Because I sell it one jar at a time.
Well, we're talking about selling it in cases.
Okay.
All right. And we'll talk about selling it in jars in a minute. Okay? So when you're getting ready to ship, when you're getting ready to distribute product, make sure that you keep your packaging costs down. There's very low minimums on these. You're not putting a lot of money out. And we're going to talk about turnover ratios with inventory in dollars here in a few minutes. So craft packaging, generic sort of labeling on the outside. And these costs, packaging costs, are one of the costs that decrease as volume increases. So the more we sell, the less expensive packaging becomes. So we built packaging into our original formula. And if it was 8% of that 60%, and it drops down to 4% with volume, what have we just done? We've just put 4% more profit into our product. Now, it may not be flow-through profit because we may have to give it back as vendor incentives. Okay? So packaging. Distribution, it's always a huge issue, a stumbling block. You really have to start out with grassroots distribution. How many of you are selling at farmers markets and stuff now?
I got some at a liquor store right now.
Don't tell Phil. Oh, she's got the...
The thing has got a label. It's all good.
Yeah, okay.
Winery market in San Francisco and in
Did Phil leave the
Berkeley.
room right
They're
now?
they're not farmers market. They're kind of like different venue kind of market.
So distribution in this industry, unfortunately, starts at a very, very grassroots level. And when we work with SBDC clients, they come and they want to know, well, how do I just get this out on the market? Well, you spend 2 years schlepping it around to grocery stores and hoping to get a foot of shelf space, and then you go and do samplings to give away half your product. But that's the only way that you get market share. That's how it works, unfortunately. So now we're going back to best use of my time, okay? When we don't look at labor and we don't put labor in here and we have to do everything ourselves, that takes time away from doing what?
Marketing?
Marketing. So we can't do it all. So when you're going through this process, as you start to grow, you have to look at the stuff you're doing and say, is this really the best use of my time? Or can I get somebody for $10 an hour to do it? I work with small restaurateurs all over the country, and they will spend every day at the front door acting as an $8 an hour host or hostess. And then they'll go back and they'll do this, and they'll put liquor on the shelves, and they'll do that. And at what point is that diminishing returns? What else could they be doing with that?
Managing their business.
Managing their business, working on their business instead of working in their business. So creating a catering program or banquet sales package or server incentives to increase check average. But no, you look at my liquor store room and every bottle of bourbon is facing exactly the same way. I'm on top of it, right? Okay. So distribution is very, very difficult. And then there's often sort of a quantum leap jump in here if you want, Massimo. There's a quantum leap from a little bit of space here and a little bit of space there to all of a sudden Trader Joe's wants your product. Sounds great, doesn't it?
Now you're in trouble.
Now you're in trouble. Now you're in trouble.
Yeah, but you cannot produce it.
You can't produce it. You can't produce it more than once. And this is where kind of your pre-planning comes in. So distribution is going to start small. It's going to be painful. You're not going to make money doing it. You're going to give away a lot of product. You're going to give up your Saturdays and Sundays. But eventually, if you got a good product at the right price point and you're filling a need, you'll start to get traction, and then you'll move on from there. As you do, and you work with vendors or distributors, they often require an incentive, a discount that they take or that they pass on to the end user or the end seller. And that also has to come out of your pocket. That generally does not happen until your sales go up like this, and then you have to start investing some of the savings that you've made by volume, by economy of scale, back into the marketing function. Okay, so if you're not making much money at the original 60%, then you need to inch the product up so that you can't change it once you get going. You're going to get less for it, not more for it, is my point. Okay, so you have to kind of keep that in mind when you build it up the first time. All right, when do I leave the home kitchen? A lot of people don't want to leave the home kitchen, and when we did this at the Brown Bag in Santa Cruz, some lady really got pissy with me because I said, oh, you want to get bigger, and she doesn't want to. You didn't get that on video, did you? You were just switching the memory cards when I said that. Anyway, not all of you want to grow. Some of you are happy doing what you're doing, and that's great, and I certainly respect that. We all go into the industry because we got a passion for food or a passion for something, and sometimes we just want to create great food, and that's the end of it. And great if you can make a few bucks doing that. But as you start to grow, you outgrow your home kitchen, not just financially, but it's not cost effective anymore. If your marmalade, if you get the price in the right place, then it takes off. Okay. That'll be a challenge, but we'll get there. You can't make it 2 jars at a time anymore, can you? Because there's not enough hours in the day to do that. So there's a progression. You have to go someplace that has a reasonable facility for not just producing the product, but packing it and storing it after it's done. Okay, and there's a resource list in the handout, I believe, which is some of the restaurants that rent commercial space, and that's fine, although they're not ideal. Yeah.
Do you know the average per hour price on some of those kitchens?
You know, they go anywhere from $15 an hour to about $35 an hour, but you have to remember that you're in there around someone else's schedule. You're using equipment around their schedule, and frankly, they're just sometimes not quite up to speed. I mean, they're not really the ideal facility. Now, you start there. You may go up further. Probably the most industrialized facility in the area is the CDC kitchen out at the El Pajaro kitchen. How many of you are familiar with that? Yeah, it's a great facility, 9,000 square feet. It's in Watsonville. Yeah, is it CDC, El Pajaro CDC?
It's right across from Watsonville High School at the end of Riverside Drive.
Alba Produce is in the front. And by the way, if you're doing something with fresh fruit, especially organic fresh fruit, talk to Alba, because you can cut your costs in half with their stuff that's a day or two old and they can't sell. Still works great for cooked products, and it's all organic as well.
How much does this place charge you per hour?
Anywhere from, I think, about state inspector is there a couple times a month. And we have a real good one there, a very easygoing guy. And he will come in and talk to you about your product, what you need to do to get it through the state system, and then come back and help you with the testing. So in your case, where you're trying to make something that you're going to bottle and put out, you know, you can go into a facility like that and take it all the way from beginning to end. Okay?
But that's still packing it on your own, right there.
It's packing it on your own, although they are now in some early conversations about doing a community co-packer in part of the kitchen, but it's a year or two away. And we're going to talk about co-packers in a minute. Okay, so you start at home, you progress up. Often people will go from home to a rental kitchen in a church, or Elks Lodges often will rent their kitchens out. They're fairly reasonable. They're not necessarily very well equipped, but bring your own stuff anyway. And then you can go all the way up to something like the CDC, where you got steam jacketed kettles and convection steamers, and there's a whole bake shop in there. I mean, huge bake shop. Okay, so that's again is another progressive situation. You probably want to start researching options there. As you get a little bit of traction, you think you're going to start moving away from your own home kitchen. The beauty with that is that you can have your product delivered. You can often piggyback with the people who own the place, and maybe they're doing business with Cisco or PFG, which is ledgered here. And instead of buying your stuff at Costco and schlepping it around the back of your car, best use of my time? Not really. You can get it delivered with their product by a vendor. It might cost you $1 more than going to Costco, but it saves you 2 to 3 hours of time. So, you know, try and come up with a site that has sort of a collaborative air about it. I think you were first.
Yeah. So when you're talking about moving up to using a commercial kitchen, you're no longer going to be restricted by the cottage food ingredients, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Or the sales maximums.
Nope.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you have bigger fees.
Yeah, but those fees weren't that much more. And if you can triple your productivity, yeah, I think it's probably well worth it.
Repeat that question just so we can get the audio on it.
Oh yeah, what the question was?
When you progress into using a commercial kitchen rather than your own kitchen, you're no longer restricted by the.
Yeah, the question was whether or not a commercial kitchen carries the same restrictions as a home kitchen, and it does not. Okay. Yeah.
Would it behoove you to prep your stuff at home still, and then just, because see, I have one oven, so the advantage for me for using that would be to bake.
And you're making what again?
Cookies and muffins.
Cookies and muffins, okay.
So I should probably prep it at home first and then take it and then bake it.
That's like a lot of
Are you
extra work.
switching cards? Yeah. That's a call that you would have to make, but, and I don't know what your...
Time, you know.
Yeah, it's going to cost you $10 an hour to stand there and use a tabletop.
Right.
But at the same time, you have use of a 60-quart mixer or a 40-quart mixer, you know, transit racks, sheet pans, a bank of 4 convection ovens.
Okay.
So I don't know that I would get involved in trying to make little batches at home and take it in and finish it there. And they have secured cages there. You can put your products in and leave them there.
Do you know how they book the time? I mean, how do you...
Tell them you know me, they'll let you in whenever you want. You simply go, and I think it's directly there, the individual who manages the place is Cesario Ruiz, and a really nice guy.
Nice guy.
Yeah, and you just tell him what equipment you need and when you know, how many hours, and he'll book you in and out. Eventually it will be a little bit more complicated because it was designed to bring in the food truck people. And we had an agreement when we built it with Environmental Health that those people had to check in and out via a time clock. Because what happens often with people who go to a rental kitchen is they pay the rent and never go there, which, you know, is very counterproductive from food safety and productivity. But it not a good idea at all. They have not initiated that because there's nobody from food trucks there yet. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, you can call the office too, and they can go to their website. I'm sure they'll walk you right through signups. Any other questions on that whole part of it? The rental kitchen, so on and so forth. There's tons of them around now. A lot of people are trying to pay their rent by renting you part of the kitchen. Some of them are great, some of them not so great. So be careful where you go with that.
But you said be careful where you go with that, so we can check with who?
Well, one of the things that you could do, certainly I would do as part of my reasonable care approach to things, is go to Environmental Health's website and see how their health inspections came out.
Yeah.
Right?
That's public record, right?
Yes, sir. Is it not, Phil?
No, it is, absolutely. You can call and ask about anything too. We're definitely responding to those kind of questions.
Yeah.
And then you do wash the equipment or whatever you use?
You have to, yeah, you have to put it back the way you found it.
Okay.
But, you know, you have a...
This is clean and,
Is it pretty clean?
yes.
It's brand new. It's 9,000 square feet,
beautiful.
state of the art.
Yeah.
Industrial dish machine, 3-hole sink, 3-compartment sink. Yeah, everything is there.
How many businesses can work at a time?
You could put 30 or 40 businesses in there at once. And it's still in its early stages, so it's very available.
Do you contract out for a certain amount of time?
You pay by the hour, and I more than that, I can't tell you.
The flyer's in your packet.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But not for CBC, right?
Yeah, that's the El Pajaro Kitchen. Yeah. Did somebody have a question over
Number
here?
7221224.
Nice people. Take good care of you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, future growth. As we grow, when you're fighting Paul Newman for shelf space in Nob Hill, there's some things that you have to do, and they're protocols that you probably ought to be doing now anyway. And so let's go through that. Batch numbers. And in your case, you're going to have lots of batch numbers, but every time you make a round of ingredients, a batch of ingredients, I'll move on to somebody else now. Every time you make a batch of product to sell, yeah, you should somehow identify that. You can put the manufacture date, or you can start creating batch numbers, and that's just sequential numbers. Can be on the case. Ideally, it should be on each individual container. And with the primary ingredients that you buy, especially the ones that may cause foodborne illness, may be more likely, which are potentially hazardous foods, you want to track the batch numbers there, because if there's a recall of walnuts,
Yes.
and you're using walnuts in your cookies, or cookie dough that's frozen and may still be out in the marketplace, you need to be able to go from recall to a recall of your own. Correct, Massimo? Mm-hmm. So,
You would write the walnut tracking number, the batch of walnuts used in that?
yeah, now however that can be conveyed to
Like in
you.
that, when you have batch number 2, you would write
Walnuts from batch 667,
spinach from here.
Molinari Walnut Company, so on and so forth.
That in the law.
You keep, yes, no, it's not on the jar, just the batch number goes on the container.
So if a walnut recall comes in,
So this is done generally via an Excel program, okay? So again, it's accountability all the way along. You know, there's a recall of walnuts, and you go, damn, I use walnuts. I hope I don't have any of those.
it's not going to cover it.
It's not going to cover it. So creating and tracking the batch numbers. So you have to be able to tell where your product is, who bought it, and at least the primary ingredients, where those came from.
What do you mean, who bought it? Is this if you're selling cases?
Yeah, if you've sold cases of it.
Okay.
Yes.
But when you're selling jars to
And at the point that you get to the point of selling cases to an end vendor, they're going to require all this. So it's a good thing to kind of build proactively. It doesn't hurt. It's part of reasonable care, and you got it in place. You may have to refine it a little bit. Okay, so we talked about researching packaging for case options. But let's talk a little bit about labeling. You know, labels are expensive and they're a big commitment. Once you buy 5,000 labels or whatever it is, you're stuck with them, right? So what do we want to be careful of when we design a label?
Spelling correct?
Yeah, that'd be a good one. So it has to meet all the requirements, right? Obviously. And, okay, we'll put spelling up here. What else do we want to be concerned about?
Ingredient list.
Well, that's something we have to do legally, and that's generally on the other side of the bottle or the container.
Correct product.
Yeah, let's leave the stuff that Phil covered out because that's already on the backside, right? So we're talking about, now we're kind of getting into marketing and brand image and so on and so forth.
But you want to make sure it looks
Appealing.
Appealing? Okay, so what would make it look appealing?
Logo.
Okay,
Logo or
so lots of color?
Fonts and brand.
Okay, so let's talk about a concept called USPs. USPs are unique selling points. And a unique selling point is a point of differentiation. It's something that we do that other people don't do. All right, so most of you are using natural products, you're organic, you're this and that. Picture your product in the natural food section of a small grocery store. Every one of those products has those same qualities, do they not?
You gotta have it catchy.
So we don't need to promote that. I mean, we may need to.
Example.
Okay. It's a little hard to see, but.
Exactly.
Yeah.